If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. Whether your goal is to launch your business, change careers, or create some new experiences in your relationships, it all starts with having a bold vision. We're going to be talking about all that and more on today's show. Now, let's get to it. Welcome to the Yes to You podcast, where we empower women to manifest their vision of happiness and success with down-to-earth practical guidance for conscious living, personal growth, and entrepreneurship. Our goal is to see you take inspired action by saying yes to your calling. I'm your host and founder of RohiniWellness.com, Dominique D. Wilson. And now, let's get into the topic of the hour. We are coasting into the new year, and I hope that you are just as excited as you were on January 1st. I know I am. You probably have some goals that you want to achieve this year, some things you want to bring into your life, some things you want to release from your life. In alignment with that theme, today we are going to be talking about how to create a bold vision for your inspired life. Now, just to recap, on the very last episode, we talked about answering your calling, which kind of sets the foundation for this whole conversation. So if you haven't listened to episode 1, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to that episode as soon as you get a chance. Body, mind, spirit. This is your weekly wellness tip. Today's wellness tip is on eating well, in particular, what to do when you have a case of the midnight munchies. Now, today's tips come from Cynthia Sass, who is a registered dietitian and also a writer for Health Magazine. We've all been there. It's late at night. You're still up for whatever reason, and you start to feel hungry. So I want to share a few things with you that will help you to make a decision that's going to support your health and well-being going forward. The first thing is to make sure that you're actually hungry. A lot of times we can eat out of habit, or perhaps we're feeling a bit of stress or anxiety, or maybe the reward center of the brain is saying, hey, you did something awesome, it's time to eat. So you want to take a moment to take a closer look and see, are there physical signs of hunger? Is your stomach growling, or is it something else? If you find that you're eating out of habit, maybe you're just used to having a snack every time you watch your favorite show on Netflix at the same time. The solution to that is to simply switch the habit up a little bit. Maybe instead of watching TV at that time, you do some journaling or go for a walk. It'll help you break out of that habit. The next thing to consider is the emotional piece. A lot of times we can feel hunger if we are sad or if we're stressed out over something. If something is bothering you, you might feel hungry. So you want to look for another way to self-soothe. You can do this through getting out of your head and into your body through physical sensation. You might fill up a basin with warm water, Epsom salt, and a few drops of your favorite essential oil and do a foot soak. That physical sensation is going to relax you and take your mind off of whatever is bothering you, and it can really help you to get through that emotion without necessarily needing to eat to cope. You can also try meditation. I offer a free 15-minute inner guidance meditation. You can find that at bit.ly/IG meditation. Another option is to download an app such as Insight Timer or Headspace. These are meditation apps where you can actually use a timer with soft music to meditate, or you can actually search for more guided meditations through their library. And finally, writing is a great way to self-soothe and to help you process emotions. If you do a little bit of writing, it can really help you to express that and to move through that emotion in a way that's healthy for you, and you might find that the urge to eat kind of goes away. Opting for something such as a few nuts, maybe just a quarter cup of nuts, or some fresh or dried fruit is a great option. You want to avoid things like junk food and processed sugars, and also alcohol. Alcohol can actually disrupt your sleep, so it's really not something that you want to do too close to bedtime. The next thing to consider is whether or not the dinner that you had was sufficient in terms of nutrition. So the next time you get a case of the midnight munchies, hopefully now you have some tools in your arsenal so that you can make an empowering decision. I will put all of this in the show notes for you, so if you're on the go, don't worry about it, I've got you covered. And now, back to the show. Now, the reason I think it's so important to create a vision for your life is because, as one famous yogi once said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. Having a vision for your life is like having a container for your goals, for your desires, your hopes, and your dreams. You'll always be moving in the direction of your purpose if you have an overall picture of what it is that you want. So I think it's so important to start there, especially this time of year, because there's so much pressure around goal setting. A lot of us set goals without even having a vision. It might seem like a really good plan, the thing you should be doing, but the question is it really moving you towards the big vision in your heart of happiness, of success that you want to manifest in the long run? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I want to ask you something. If you knew that over the next 30 seconds, these would be the very last breaths that you would ever take, how would you feel? What might you be thinking? Could you look back with peace and say that you achieved all that you wanted to achieve, that you lived your life in a way that was most inspiring, meaningful, and fulfilling to you? Several years ago when I was in college, I was on my way to take an exam. I had just left my house. It was early on a beautiful sunny morning. And I remember I had just kind of looked out over the horizon. I could see the sun coming up. Before I knew it, I was literally flying through the air. And all I could do was freeze in that moment as I stared at that horizon and watched the entire world slowly turn upside down. I was headed straight for the ground, head first. And mind you, I was not wearing a helmet. I was absolutely terrified because everything had happened so fast, but at the same time stood still, and all these thoughts flashed through my head. I really believed at that moment that I was about to die. I was terrified. All I could think of was, man, there's still things that I wanted to do. There are people who I wanted to connect with. I haven't even seen half the world yet. This is not fair. In that moment, I realized that it wasn't dying that I was afraid of. No, I was terrified of not having lived the life that I really wanted, and that now it might be too late. That day I came down pretty hard. Needless to say, I survived, made a full recovery, and I walked away from that experience with two very important lessons. Lesson number 1. If you're going to be riding your bike around the inner city area, you might want to wear a helmet. Because cars are not looking for bikes. They really rarely ever even see you coming. And even though, yes, you have the right of way, it only takes a second for someone to hit that accelerator, and then there you go. And lesson number 2, if you are serious about experiencing your ideal, fulfilling, inspired life, you must be able to see it first. And that starts with having a powerful vision. Creating a vision for your life provides a productive focus for everything that you think and say and do. And it helps to ensure that no matter what happens, you always walk in alignment with who you are and what it is that you truly want. Because visioning is such a broad concept, there are vision boards, there are meditation exercises, there are all types of practices around creating vision. I want to share some ideas with you today to simplify the process based upon the work of Dr. Stewart Friedman, who's the founder of the Wharton Leadership Institute. Dr. Friedman breaks life down into 4 categories, which he terms domains: the domain of work, home, community, and personal. In an effort to assist you through this process of creating vision, I've put together a free resource for you. So if you go over to my website, rohiniwellness.com/vision, you can download my free PDF guide, the Create Your Vision Workbook. This is going to help you walk through all the steps of creating a vision. There's a ton of resources in there. It really breaks everything down step by step. And it'll provide a lot of context for what we are going to be discussing on today's episode. If you haven't had a chance to print out the Create Your Vision Workbook, feel free to grab a pen and paper. Of course, all of this information will be in the show notes for you, so don't worry if you can't take notes. I've got you covered. By completing this exercise, you're going to walk away with everything that you need to put together a powerful vision statement, which is kind of like a narrative, if you will, that will help to keep you inspired and motivated to achieve your goals, no matter what. Let's take a look at the first domain, which is work. The domain of work includes your career, your job, your business, the income that results from that, your education, as well as your personal development, because all of these things kind of center around work or whatever it is that you do out in the world. According to a recent study, 70% of Americans are disengaged at work. And I think I kind of understand where that comes from. It's because so many people are not using their natural gifts, their natural strengths, their natural talents. There's no element of desire in the work they do. They're not able to bring their values into that workplace. And so the work after a while becomes draining. You can only wear a mask for so long because when you do something that's draining to you, it's not sustainable. At some point, something has to give. Your vision and doing what inspires you is what gives you life. It literally increases your life force energy. So looking at the domain of work, we want to take a look at your vision for what you would be doing if you were just having so much fun, doing what you love, that you lost track of time, and guess what? You get paid for it. What would that look like for you in your ideal life? So just take a moment to write down a few thoughts about that. If you are an entrepreneur, what kind of business do you own? What are your customers like? Do you partner with someone else? Are you a solopreneur? How about your career? What are your coworkers like? What are the people around you like? What are the surroundings? So when you're writing vision in the domain of work, you want to be vivid and descriptive. There are no right or wrong answers here. There's no need for limitation. Freely write whatever it is that comes to mind based on your own desires. You also want to think about the money. How much money do you make in your ideal life? You also want to look at your education and your personal development. So what are the things that you do in your ideal life to enrich yourself? Do you have a PhD? Do you travel around the world to massive business conferences to enrich yourself? Remember, in your vision, money's not a problem, time is not a problem, energy is not a problem. You have everything you need. Just write based on pure desire. The next domain we want to look at is home. The domain of home includes anything related to your home environment. Your home itself. Do you live in a house or in an apartment, in a condo? Are you in a rural area? Are you in an urban area? Are you surrounded by nature? Can you hear people in the hustle and bustle going out on the streets? Think about the internal environment of your home. Who lives with you in your ideal vision of your life? Do you live alone? Have you created a family? Do you have extended family members that live with you? Do you have roommates? What about your home interior? Is it lush with beautiful paintings and furniture? Or are you more of a minimalist with just the bare essentials? Get really creative in this process of describing your home environment and what that looks and feels like for you in your ideal life. The next domain we want to look at is community. Now, the domain of community includes your community involvement and impact. So in your ideal situation, what would your community involvement look like? Do you go out and protest? Do you volunteer locally somewhere? Do you give through your finances? Are you a philanthropist? How do you make an impact in the community? Also, you want to look at your social life in this domain. So are you a homebody? Do you like to go out and party? What is that like? How about your friendships? How do your friendships feel? What kinds of things do you do with your friends? What do you guys talk about? So really describe your ideal friendships. And also, this domain includes your circle of influence. It has been said that you are an average of the 5 people who you spend the most time around. So, not talking about right now, but in your ideal vision of your life, who are those 5 people? Who is in your power circle? Who knows? Maybe you have coffee with Oprah every Saturday morning. I don't know. It's your vision. So get really creative with the domain of community. And the fourth and final domain is personal. The personal domain includes your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. This also includes your lifestyle, your leisure. So here you want to describe your ideal physical state, your ideal mental wellness, your ideal emotional wellness. What does your spiritual life look like? What kinds of things do you feed yourself? What do you feed your spirit? How do you nourish yourself? Are you athletic? Are you into fitness? Do you listen to soothing music? How do you relate to your actual self? What are your spiritual practices like? Do they include meditation, prayer, maybe traveling to sacred sites around the world? So really think about that personal domain, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. Then you want to look at your lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you live? Do you eat at restaurants, fancy restaurants very often? Do you travel a lot? Do you like to spend most of your time hiking out in nature? Whatever lifestyle looks like for you. And also, you want to look at leisure. This is my favorite one, because I want you to think about, if money wasn't an issue, you had all the time in the world, all the energy, all the health, what would you be doing for fun? What would fun and leisure look like for you? So now you have it, the 4 domains by Dr. Friedman. We talked about the domain of work. We talked about the domain of home. We talked about the domain of community and the domain of personal. And hopefully you're able to go through each of those areas with some of the examples I provided and write some vision for yourself. And then you can polish it up a bit and maybe turn it into kind of a narrative of your ideal life or your dream life story. Again, if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to download my Create Your Vision workbook, because it's going to break down this exercise, but in so much more detail, so that you get much more value out of this exercise than what I could actually give you on just this episode. In the workbook, you're going to look at 8 different major areas of your life. You'll be able to assess them for your overall level of satisfaction. You'll be able to then see how you can make some adjustments and how to break things down into simpler steps so that you can actually move forward and take some action starting now. So this is a really cool resource. It's totally free. I highly recommend it. To close things out today, I'd like to share just a couple final thoughts with you. Number 1, although many people mean well, not everyone can see your vision. If a person has not reached a point in their own life where they can really tap in and believe in themselves and see their own vision, there's no way they can go beyond their limitations and hold that vision for you. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that everyone is at a different stage in their development, and that's fine. That's beautiful. That is the reality of human life. But as far as you, I encourage you to be selective about who you share your vision with. I want you to think of your vision as a baby, a small newborn baby. That baby needs to be nourished, protected, cared for, kept warm, fed, loved, and given so much attention, because the baby hasn't yet developed its own strength and self-awareness to be able to take care of itself. So your vision is like that baby. Now, if somebody just walked up and said, "Hey, can I hold your baby?" and you didn't know that person and they weren't vetted, would you hand your baby over? No, of course not. So treat your vision the same way. Don't allow just anybody to hold your baby. Don't allow just anybody to hold your vision. That is a privilege that has to be earned. So, if you're going to be bringing people along for the ride, make sure that they are on board with that vision and that they are capable of holding it with you. Don't let anyone else's doubt, fear, or insecurity interfere with your momentum. The most important thing is what you think and what you believe about yourself. Always remember that. And the second thought I want to leave you with is this. If you're wondering, okay, Dominique, I got the whole vision thing, right? But how on earth am I supposed to materialize this? How am I supposed to make this happen? I encourage you to focus less on how than on your why. Your why is your inspiration, your story, some of the things we talked about in episode 1. Your why is what gets you out of bed in the morning when everything comes crashing down. You're tired and you just don't even feel like it. The why is what keeps you going forward no matter what. Your inspiration will always inform your next step. So you go back to your inspiration, you take a step forward. You go back to your inspiration again, you take another step forward. And that's how you move forward powerfully. On that note, I want to leave you with a quote by author Jen Sincero. She wrote the book, You Are a Badass. By the way, If you have not read this book, make sure you also add that one to your 2019 reading list. I will put that in the show notes as well. Jen says this: when you up-level your idea of what's possible and decide to really go for it, you open yourself up to the means to accomplish it as well. Wow, I couldn't have said that better myself. Thank you, Jen, for such an amazing quote, and thank you for tuning in again to this episode of the Yes to You podcast. As a very special thanks to our founding listeners, we are doing a giveaway. All you have to do is go to iTunes and leave us a review or share this episode on social media using hashtag #YesToYou, and you'll be entered to win something amazing for your body, mind, and spirit. I highly recommend that you stick around for episode 3 because we are going to continue breaking down barriers with a very powerful topic. So episode 3 is going to be how to overcome your fear of being seen and being heard. Definitely don't want to miss that one. So I will see you on the next episode. It was a pleasure to have you join us for this episode of the Yes to You podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to visit rohinniwellness.com/vision to download my free PDF starter guide, the Create Your Vision Workbook. If this episode was helpful for you, please leave us a review on iTunes. Also, when you share this episode on social media using hashtag #YesToYou, we'll give you a shout out on a future episode. We look forward to inspiring you next time, right here on the Yes to You podcast.